Good afternoon, everyone. Allison, did you enjoy the morning off this morning?
Yes, I slept in so long.
I did too.
And then I read like 8 chapters of my book.
Yeah, I thought to myself, I'll just give them the morning off instead of coming up with some kind of filler lesson.
Yeah, I was so thankful.
We have our guest lecturer coming today. She's not with us yet. I'm sure she'll be with us in a moment. There she is. Hi, Sam.
Hello, Professor. How have you been?
I've been doing well. How are you?
I've been well.
You
Do you want
enjoying?
me, do you want me to start right away?
We can give it just another minute or so.
Okay.
Sure, everybody pops in. I haven't seen you around this semester. We must be here on different days,
Oh, I think so, yeah.
different times, even.
It must have been that.
Well, guys, we can go ahead and get started now. Of course, today's class kind of concludes our world religions study as far as how world religions ties in with the study of ethics. We've talked about every other one at this point except for Islam. And Sam, if you want to introduce yourself and tell us what you're doing, tell everybody what you're doing here at Bluefield State.
Sure. So, hello, everyone. My name is Samehir Omrani, but you guys can call me Sam. I am a Fulbright scholar at BSU, and I basically teach Arabic and Arabic cultures to different classes. I will be uh, I will be here until May. So if you have any questions about anything related to those topics, please feel free to come by. My office is in Science Building. So please feel free to do that. And for today, we're going to speak about Islam as a religion and what Muslims do on a daily basis. Okay, so first, we're going to start with some like true or false. So you can type in, you can speak wherever you want. So false or true? First statement is all Muslims are Arabs. All Muslims are Arabs. Do you think this is a true statement or a false statement? What do you think, guys? And just to be clear, Muslims is the name for people who follow the faith or the religion of Islam.
False.
False? Okay, that's true. So all Muslims are Arabs, that's false. No. We do have A lot of people from different places who are not really Arabs, but they're still Muslims, like, for example, in Pakistan, in India. There are a lot of places like this, also in Malaysia. And then the second statement is Islam promotes violence or terrorism. Maybe you've seen it on the news being mentioned a few times. Do you think
False.
false? Yeah, that's true. So Islam does not promote violence in any way. It's actually a religion based on peace. And then number three, Muslim women are oppressed. Muslim women are oppressed. What do you think?
I'm not sure if this is right, but I would assume that they are.
They are?
Yeah, that's what I would assume.
Okay.
Are you saying Muslim women or Arab women?
No, Muslim women.
No, I don't think so then.
Yeah, exactly. They are not actually. So Muslim women are not oppressed. I think a lot of media actually do not show the whole image for Muslim women. They're not really well represented in the media, and that's why some people might think that they're being oppressed because of their religion, which is not true. They're free to do whatever they want, to dress up however they want. It's their own personal choice. Okay, now the first one is Muslims are against modernity and education. So Muslims are against modernity and education. What do you think, guys?
Definitely false on the education. The modernity, I would say it depends.
On the country?
Yeah.
Okay, so this statement is actually false. Muslims are not against modernity. They are absolutely not against education. It's actually a religion that promotes uh, learning. So the first word that God sent to Muslims is actually the word study or the word read. And that's why a lot of Muslims actually work in research and they also work in many fields like technology, education, um, all fields all around the world. Okay, and then number five, all Muslims think and believe the same way. All Muslims think and believe the same way. This is mainly about topics like, for example, abortion, um, education, things like that. So, do you think they believe and think the same way because they all follow the same religion?
False.
False. Very good, Jordan. So, it's actually false. And this is, I think, the same with any religion, whether you're a Christian or like you're a Jew or you're even a Buddhist, you're not the same Buddhist as another person. It just cannot be the same. Of course, certain beliefs, certain limitations, certain boundaries are always different depending on the person and their understanding of their religion. So, correct, it is false. All right, now let's get to know more about Islam, okay? Let's get to know more about it. All right, so first, our outline. What are we going to speak about today? Number one, we're going to speak about understanding Islam. So the faith, its foundations, and also ethics. And then we're going to speak about the origins and core beliefs of Islam. Third, Quran, which is the holy book. And then four, Islam as an Abrahamic religion, which means as a religion that follows the same family for the Jews and also for Christians. And number five, the five pillars of Islam. I will speak more about it. Six, ethics in Islam. Seven Islamic philosophers. We're going to take the example of Avicenna and Averroes. And then eight, we're going to end this presentation with questions and answers, of course. So first, let's go to the foundations. Okay, so now we have to understand that Islam is actually not a small religion. It's not a faith that has, a few followers. It's actually a major religion in the world. It's within the top three biggest, largest religions, and it has 2 billion followers worldwide. 2 billion followers. So it's a framework that connects spiritually, moral conduct, and also social justice. So, to understand Islamic ethics, it is very important to first understand where Islam comes from and how it views the world. So, in here, we're speaking about spirituality. We're also speaking about our moral conduct, how we behave, and we also speak about social justice. So you can think of it as a religious book, true, but it is also a, a book that has rules that we can follow so that we are socially conducting in an appropriate manner, in a just manner. Okay, now the second slide that we have is the origins and core beliefs. And I think a lot of people don't really know about this one. So for Islam, it originated in the 7th century CE, where in the Arabian Peninsula. Now, the Arabian Peninsula might sound um, like a non-existent place, actually, but it's an ancient place. And now it is called Mecca. It is also known as Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia is the country. Maybe you've seen it in the media because of the war in Iran. It is close to Iran, and it is a really big country in the Middle East. So Mecca is a city within Saudi Arabia, and that's where Islam was found. Okay, by who? By a prophet. And the prophet is called Muhammad, and he was born in 570 CE. He is considered the final messenger in a long line of prophets that includes Abraham, Moses, and Jesus. And I know you guys are familiar with these names. And then, of course, according to Islamic belief, Muhammad began receiving the revelations from God, uh, Allah. So Muslims call God Allah, through the angel Gabriel. So there was an angel called Gabriel. He came from the sky, from God, and he went to Mecca where Muhammad was living, and he sent him revelations about the word and the religion of Islam. Okay, these revelations lasted not 1 year, not 2 years, not 3 years, 23 years. So it was a long process, and each year God will send a little bit of revelations to the Prophet Muhammad, and the Prophet Muhammad would, of course, preach to the people living next to him, to his neighbors, to the cities close to him about his revelations. So the word Islam itself means submission. So you're submitting to God. So it's specifically it's specifically submission to the will of God, and it is a person who follows this faith is called a Muslim, which means one who submits. So it's a total submission to God, Allah. The central message of Islam is Tawheed, and Tawheed means the absolute oneness of God. What does this mean? It means that God for Muslims is unique. He doesn't have any partners, doesn't have any children, he doesn't have any equals. He's just one person who rules over everything. And then Islam also emphasized the idea of moral accountability and that every person is responsible for their own actions and that life is both a test and a trust from God. So, what Muslims, what do you think they're supposed to do? How do they live their life? Well, the ultimate goal is to live a balanced, righteous life in harmony, of course, with the divine guidance. So, if you are a Muslim, your goal is to do well in life so that you can go afterwards to heaven. And I think this is very similar to Christianity, if I'm not wrong. So, for Muslims, of course, they have also heaven and hell. So people who do good things, who follow the divine guidance in the Quran, those people go to heaven after the judgment day. And then the people who are bad or like, criminals who kill other people, who murder, um, you know, who do bad things will of course be sent to hell on judgment day. So Muslims think that this word, that this life, is not the real life. This is simply a test to your own character, to your own personality, to your own values, and the person with the best, behavior, with the best intentions, will get a reward and will go to heaven afterwards. That's how it is for Muslims. Okay? And then let's speak about the Quran. So the Quran is just like the holy book, the Bible, it's the same thing. It is, I would say, shorter than the Bible. Uh, it has mixed um, recitations in it, and all Muslims must read the holy book at least once in their lives, at least. So, the Quran is the central religious text of Islam. It is believed by Muslims to be the literal word of God. So, they are the words sent to the Prophet Muhammad by God, revealed to the Prophet Muhammad over a period of 23 years. The word Quran itself means recitation in Arabic. Because the revelations were first spoken aloud and memorized before being written down. Yeah, so for the longest time, I think for 70 years, 80 years, the Quran was not written, it was spoken, it was passed down from one generation to the next through spoken words. And of course, in the Quran, you have to follow, whatever you find. So here you will see that each revelation was recorded by scribes and companions of the Prophet and later combined into a single text. And this is what I was speaking about. And of course, here it has that the Quran is divided into 114 chapters, call it surahs, and then it is about 6,036 verses, and those they are called ayah in Arabic. Now, uh, the chapters, they vary greatly in length, so they're not really, some are really short and some are really long, like 30, 40 pages. It really depends on the story. And some of them are called, for example, the Cow, the Light, and the Mercy. There are other names, of course. So here, Islam as an Abrahamic religion, and to make it maybe closer to Christians. So Islam is deeply connected to Judaism and Christianity, forming what we call the Abrahamic faiths. All three religions trace their spiritual heritage back to the prophet Ibrahim, who is seen as a model of faith and obedience to God. So they all share the same prophets. Jews, Christians, and then Muslims, same prophets. Islam views itself as the continuation and completion, actually, of the same monotheistic tradition. Muslims believe that God sent many prophets, including Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, David, Solomon, and Jesus, to guide humanity throughout history. And each prophet brought the same essential message, which is to worship one God and live ethically. In Islam, though, because there is a difference between Islam and Christianity. In Islam, Jesus, who is known as Isa, is highly respected and regarded as one of the greatest prophets, but not divine. He is seen as a messenger who brought the gospel and called people to faith in God. So that's the only difference. For Muslims, they believe that Jesus was another prophet. Uh, but I think in Christianity, they believe that he is uh, part of the Holy Trinity. Sorry, I don't have a lot of knowledge about it. Yeah, but
Right.
yeah, that's the difference. That's the main difference. The Quran also recognizes previous scriptures such as Torah and Psalms, but Muslims believe that the Quran is the final revelation, and it's the completion of all earlier messages. So, do Muslims believe in Judaism? They do. Do they believe in Christianity to a certain degree? They do. Do they believe that Quran is like the final message? They do. So that's how it goes. It's just a build up towards the completion, which is Islam. Of course, Christians don't believe this. You are free to believe whatever you want. And then we're going to speak about the pillars of this religion. So the pillars of this religion are actually five. Five pillars that any Muslim must do. They are non negotiable, it's a requirement. You cannot be a Muslim if you don't do these five things. Okay, first thing is faith, shahada. Second thing, prayer, salah. Third, charity, zakat in Arabic. Fourth, fasting, sawm, also in Arabic. And then the fifth is pilgrimage, hajj in Arabic. Now, confusing, so we're gonna see each one of them. First one is a shahada. So the shahada is declaring your faith. And it is basically saying there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is his messenger. So it's a simple statement that defines the Muslim identity. If you want to become a Muslim, first thing you must say is this: there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is his messenger. Okay, this is the easy part, I guess. This is how they do it, okay? You can see they are praying here. Okay, now the prayer. Muslims pray 5 times a day. 5 times. At dawn, noon, mid-afternoon, sunset, and night. 5 times. You're gonna ask how many minutes are we speaking? Because 5 prayers is a lot, right? Like daily. Okay, so each prayer I'd say is like, I'd say 8 minutes, maybe 8 minutes. So 8 minutes for each prayer. Some are longer, some are shorter, but you have to do it 5 times a day. The prayer connects the believer to God because you are praying to God and you are speaking to God when you're praying. So it builds discipline and promotes equality between all beings. So all Muslims, no matter where you're from, no matter your ethnicity, you stand shoulder to shoulder regardless of everything, and you worship God in the same way. And I can show you a prayer video for a bit, but really like fast.
لا جدك ولا إله غيرك أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين حمده رب.
And then from like standing, um, yeah, they do this. And they're basically saying, like, God is the greatest, uh, God is the most important person. And then, of course, they continue reciting the Quran and then do it again. And then a Shahada. Yeah, it usually takes 8 minutes total. Okay, so that's praying. Now, the third one is charity, also called zakat. So, for charity, Muslims are, it's not really a governmental thing. This is more like a people doing this. Muslims are required to give 2.5% of their wealth annually to help the poor and needy. So, this pillar emphasizes social justice and economic balance, ensuring that wealth circulates and that no one is left behind. So, this is basically a system created by, the Quran. It is something put to help people who need help, people who cannot, get food, people who don't really have any money to get any kind of medical uh, checkups or anything like that. Muslims who do have money, they are required to give 2.5% of their wealth each year to the poor and the needy. Anyone in their neighborhood, anyone in their kids' school, anyone they know, anyone that people recommend or say, you should give to this person, they do it. And it's not related to any government program or anything like that. It's done personally on a personal level. And usually, you're not supposed to mention this. When you give Muslims, when they give to the needy, or when they give donations, they are not supposed to speak about this act because to them, if you speak about it, God will not see it as a good thing. God will say that you did it just to boast about it. So it is not taking as something you did, and instead of putting it on your good shoulder, good things that you're doing, they're gonna put it on your bad shoulders, okay? And that's why Muslims don't talk about this. They do charity, but they do not talk about it. Okay, now next one we have is fasting. Now this might be a bit weird, but actually Muslims each year fast for 30 days, a whole month. So they do this because they believe that it builds self control and gratitude and empathy. So they believe that if you feel the hunger, Oh, by fasting, I mean that they don't eat and they don't drink any kind of liquid from sunset to sundown. So basically, starting at 6 a.m. and finishing at 6 p.m. They cannot eat, they cannot drink. And this is because they believe that if you don't eat and if you don't drink, you will feel the hunger of the poor people and you'll feel more empathetic towards them and you will help them more. Okay? Now, next thing we have is pilgrimage. Now, pilgrimage is once in a lifetime, if financially and physically able, if you can do it, if you have the money to do it, and if you are, not sick or anything, Muslims perform the Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca. And remember, Mecca is the place where Islam started. So they do this and they go to Mecca to the pilgrimage for 1 month or for 2 weeks, depends on whatever you want to do. And basically, they have like a certain trip that they do there. They go see the cube, like the black cube, and they go visit certain places where the Prophet lived, and they go see where the Prophet is buried, and it's a symbol of unity, equality, and humility because everyone is in Mecca and they're all praying to God. That's the only thing they're supposed to do. For a whole month, it's just praying to God every day, praying to God, and that's it. So you can think of it as a spiritual cleansing. Now, for Islamic ethics, ethics in Islam are deeply rooted in faith and intention. Even the Arabic word ethics, akhlaq, refers to character and moral behavior. And the Prophet Muhammad said, I was sent to perfect good character. So that's his mission. At its heart, Islamic ethics are based on the belief that humans are stewards of God's creation and are accountable for their actions. Every moral decision should be guided by taqwa, which is the consciousness or awareness of God's presence. Some of the key principles include justice, compassion and mercy, intention, having good intentions, and then honesty, humility, and of course, generosity. So it is actually a religion of ethics. So, beyond religious practice, Islam developed also a sophisticated philosophical tradition, especially during the golden age of Islam, which was from 8th century to 13th century. Two great thinkers, Avicenna, his Arabic name is Ibn Sina, and Averroes Ibn Rushd, played key roles in shaping Islamic and Western thought. So we're going to start with Avicenna. So Avicenna was a Persian philosopher and physician who sought to unite Aristotelian philosophy with Islamic theology, mixing both. He believed that the highest purpose of ethics was the perfection of the soul. For Avicenna, living ethically meant training the soul to rise above material desires through reason, self discipline, and knowledge, much like any other Muslim. Virtue, he said, is a balance between extremes, an idea inspired by Aristotle's concept of the golden mean. His ethical thought also emphasized intellectual and moral development, that true happiness comes not from pleasure, but from the pursuit of truth and wisdom. So this is Avicenna's take. Now let's see Averroes. So Averroes was from Andalusia, also known as modern Spain now. It is the Muslim part of Spain, okay? because Spain is not really a Muslim country, but there is a part of Spain which called Andalusia, where you can find a Muslim community there. So he's from that place. He was both a philosopher and a judge. He defended the use of reason as a way to understand revelation. His most famous idea is that truth does not contradict truth. So, if there is a truth in the Quran or any religious book, it does not contradict the truth that we find in mathematics or real life, or the reasonable sciences that we have. He believed philosophy and religion aim at the same truth, but through different paths. While the Quran teaches truth symbolically, philosophy explain it rationally with reason. He saw the ethics as the practice of justice, moderation, and rational self-control. It's to live in harmony with the divine law. So both philosophers show that in Islam, faith and reason are not enemies actually, but allies in the search of moral truth. Their works later influenced, of course, greater European thinkers such as Thomas Aquinas and shaped medieval and Renaissance philosophy. Okay, this is an army of philosophers would not be sufficient to change the nature of error and to make it truth. And then, of course, we're going to start our Q&A. Okay. From what you've heard so far, do you guys have any questions about any part? Or about Muslims or Islam or something that you've heard maybe that you want to check if it is true or not? No? All good?
Let's give them a couple of minutes, Sam. Everybody take 5 and
Okay.
write out maybe on a scratch piece of paper or something some leftover thoughts or questions that you might have, and then we'll kind of go round table. Okay. Sam, how much longer are you with us before you have
Oh,
to go?
I think for probably 3 more weeks.
3 more weeks. But we will miss you. You have been a delight to have around this year.
Yeah. It's been great though.
Let's start just kind of going round table. It's just seeing what you guys might have on your mind. Um, Jordan, you're first up in the screen there. You got anything that you're wondering about?
Um, so for the pilgrimage part, you said that like Muslims are supposed to go to Mecca like once in a lifetime.
Hmm.
Is that like is it a requirement that they only go once, or they go more than once if they want to?
No, they can definitely go more than once. The minimum is one time. And like they said, if they cannot do it, if they don't have the financial means to do it, it's not a requirement anymore. They can just do it at home, they can pray, and that's it. Yeah, actually, like Islam is very flexible. Um, Even if you don't have time to do your prayers uh, at their set times, you can just do them all together at night after work or anything like that. It's really a religion of flexibility. It's not a rigid religion.
What about you, Allison? You're next up.
That actually answered my question. I wanted to know how flexible that it was, like the praying 5 times a day and stuff. That was my
Yeah.
question.
No, it's very flexible.
What about some of the rest of you guys?
I don't know if this is more so a question, but something that really was interesting was I did not know this was an ethics type of religion. So, like, that was something that piqued my interest a little.
Yeah, it's very much based on ethics. And like I said, you can think of it as a religious book, but at its core, it's actually a conduct, how to behave, what things to do, what things not to do, in many situations in life. And this is at a time when nothing like this was going on or was happening.
You want to, Sam? I was just curious. You started your presentation out by talking about like your true and false. And you mentioned the treatment of women.
Hmm.
Um, I was just curious if you would want to comment more on that. I know like certain countries have different laws that are like previously your predecessors in the Fulbright talked about. They were from Morocco, and they talked about in Morocco it was things were um, more open than maybe some place like Saudi Arabia or something like that. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah. Well, definitely, like we hear a lot of people, even on the media, speaking sometimes about, certain oppression against women in Muslim countries, particularly Arab countries in the Middle East. And, I just want to be very specific about this because Islam is found in over 22 countries in the world. And in each country, it's different. Some countries use it in their own in their own government, in their politics, and those countries most times not so good. Or let's just say they mix it too much. It's not great. But it really depends on the country because if you're thinking about, for example, the MENA region, which is Middle East and North Africa. North African countries, like for example, Morocco, Tunisia, where I'm from, also Algeria, Libya, Sudan, all those countries, they don't really have, any oppression against women. You're free to do whatever you want. Religion is not really a big part of politics. It's just like We just say the majority of people are Muslims and that's it. You're free to practice whatever you want. But in other countries, for example, in the Middle East, specifically in Saudi Arabia, uh, people there are more religious, and like I said, they mix religion with the government politics, which can be problematic here, of course, when it comes to women. For example, in Saudi Arabia, women were not able to drive until 8 years ago. 8 years ago, which is, catastrophic, And this is not something that is found in the Quran. There's nowhere in the Quran that says, "Oh, women should not be allowed to drive" or anything like that. It's just something, like I said, extreme for people mixing both things together. Nowadays, though, Saudi Arabia is working on its women's right. Nowadays, for example, when you go out, you don't have to wear a covering, the black covering that they wear. You don't have to wear it anymore. You're free to wear whatever you want. And I don't know if you've seen it, but Cardi B went to Saudi Arabia. I think that's funny. Yeah, so Cardi B went to Saudi Arabia a couple of months ago and she did a concert there. And that can tell you, how open Saudi Arabia has become in the very, very few years ago, like 3 years ago. It's changing really, really rapidly, and it's embracing, all of the rights all around, in all fields. So it's been a journey for them, but they're coming to it finally.
And I was also curious if maybe you could explain, like, because one of the things we talk about a lot with Christianity is how Christianity divided into all these groups. I was curious if maybe you could explain to them, especially like what a Sunni
Uh-huh.
Muslim believes, as well as maybe a Shiite.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so for like Islam, like I said, the book is the Quran. But there are some people who follow, like I said, politics. So they follow the leaders from who were following the prophet, you know, centuries old. And that actually is a problem. Okay, I'm not sure about Christianity, but for Islam, it's a bit of a problem because you have two options. I mean, there are three, but mainly two. As a Muslim, you can choose to be a Sunnah Muslim or you can choose to be a Sharia Muslim. If you are a Sunnah Muslim, it means you're flexible, you respect women's rights, things like that. All is good. Women go get an education. They don't really have to wear anything specific. Women can do whatever they want, very liberal. But if you are going to be, a Muslim Sharia, it's actually a bit different because they are more extreme, more religious, more rigid. I'm not sure if there is an equivalent of this for Christians, but that's the way it is for Islam. And for example, a good example would be Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, the Muslims there, they are not Sunnah, they are Sharia. And that's why there is a lot of conflict between all of them, all the Muslims there. Yeah. So it can be different, like I said, depending on who you're following, what type of faith you're following, your boundaries. It's really personal.
Yeah, of the several billion, most are Shia, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
true.
Sorry, my camera is not working, but I did have a question out of curiosity. Um, so are Muslims like allowed to marry people of other faiths?
Oh, that's a
Like,
good question.
like if you marry someone that may be Muslim, do you have to change your religion and your faith if you marry someone that is Muslim?
That's a really good question. Okay, so this really depends on the person you are marrying and his family. If you're marrying somebody who is, like I said, like a really religious person and he's pretty rigid with it, he's gonna ask you to change your faith and to become a Muslim too. But if you're marrying a person who's just a simple Muslim who's really, fine, flexible with anything, and who's not very religious, he's probably gonna say, "You keep your religion, I keep mine. It's fine. Whatever works for us, works. You don't really have to change your religion for me or something like that." It's basically like this.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. It really depends on the person, though. Yeah, because there are levels of Islam. For example, in my country, in Tunisia, they say the majority of people in my country are Muslims. But when you think about it, not everyone pray. you know, not everyone pray 5 times a day, and not everyone is always nice. Not everyone is like that. There is also the thing with drinking. Muslims cannot drink, alcohol, wine, or beers, whatever. But in my country, they do drink. So it really depends on, what kind of Muslim you are. Okay, Professor, I still have 2 more minutes, 3 more minutes. Can we do another one? Maybe?
Last minute questions from anybody else? Okay, Sam. Well, I appreciate you joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you certainly for attending. And if I don't
It's
see
been
you,
great.
if I don't see you around, good luck in your last few weeks of the
Thank
semester.
you. Thank you so much. Goodbye, guys.
Yeah, so hopefully you guys all gain something from that. Just to add a couple things, like she mentioned, one thing that she discussed that I probably should clarify again. Islam does believe in the same God of Christianity, of Judaism. It is an Abrahamic faith. The main difference, as she articulated, um, Islam kind of believes Christianity kind of got it wrong with the whole idea of the Trinity. A lot of Islam, especially early Islam, kind of saw that as being a polytheistic religion, kind of like Hinduism. Like you don't believe in one God, you believe in three gods. We, of course, Christian would say it's three gods, but in one person. So that is kind of one of the big differences between them. Historically speaking, Islam has traditionally been very tolerant of other faiths, especially in the Golden Age. But depending on the country and stuff today, some are more than others. As far as if I was going to comment any on the conflicts that are going around, those are very complicated, and those certainly extend beyond more than like the 5 or 10 minutes I have left of class here. But if I was going to boil down the conflict in the Middle East, this is my perspective. Okay, take it for what you will. I'm not saying that I'm right on this. After the Second World War, especially after the Holocaust, there was kind of a movement. We need to kind of do something to restore the Israel nation back to the Jews. Okay, so the United Nations kind of all got together and decided to restore the country of Israel back in the Middle East. Well, the country of Israel hadn't been around since, well, probably 500 or 600 years before Christ's birth and death. Okay, that's how long it's been since Israel has been a nation. But after the Second World War, they did that. When they did that, they displaced a lot of Muslims who had held that land in the Middle East for well over 1,000 years. So my take on that, just to give you the 5-minute Spark Notes version here, my take on that has always been, how would you feel if one day somebody kind of the United Nations walked into your country and said, this is no longer Palestine, this is now Israel? And that has been the source of contention and war and strife ever since they restored the nation of Israel. Especially today, when we also kind of think about whose side should we take in the conflict. Even from a Christianity perspective, that is also complicated. It's mostly evangelical Protestants who really want to take the side of Israel, always, no matter what, because in the Old Covenant, Israel was God's chosen nation. Okay, but other Christians, like I'll speak for the Catholics here, certain other Christians kind of say, no, we should kind of remain neutral here, because we can't really prioritize them, because God's new covenant is Christ, right? So the old covenant was Israel, the new covenant is Christ. So especially like more of the hard evangelical traditions support Israel no matter what. Others, like Rome, are always calling for peace and an end to these never-ending conflicts and stuff like that. So it's a complicated situation, and I'll say it, what the prime minister of Israel is doing to these people in Palestine is horrendous. This guy is a genocidal maniac, okay? And I cannot believe that we would ever support him for what he's doing. The Palestinians, they're not without blood on their hands either. But to do this ethnic cleansing and stuff that is going on right now, I don't see how anyone can stand for it. So that's kind of my take on it. I don't know if Jordan, have you studied this stuff, especially in your history classes? Is there anything you want to add?
I've looked into it on my own time. I might have talked about it with Dr. Montag some too. I don't know if I have much to add other than what you've already said. I find this whole situation extremely just horrific. I do not support what is happening in Gaza. So that is all I'll say on it before I get myself into a place and start a rant in the middle of the class.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's undoubtedly a horrendous thing, and there are certain Islamic sects that do kind of take more of like a gung ho, let's go to war no matter what. Um, God will reward us in the afterlife if we do things like fly a plane into a building in America, right? Like there are certain sects like that, but they're nuts, okay? You can't lump them in with the rest of Islam. Um, Islam, I mean, it's just like in Christianity, there's certain sects of Christians. Like think about like the Westboro Baptist Church, right? Like that bunch is a bunch of nuts. Uh, it's the same for these like extremely um, violent certain Muslim sects. See, my point being here, you can't lump the entire faith in like a lot of people do. You can't lump the entire faith in with what a few extremists do. And a lot of the people who are doing bombings and stuff on different places in Israel, they're those very radical people. And a lot of innocent people are getting punished because of what a few radicals are doing. That's kind of that's how I see it from my bird's eye view, at least. Um,
It might also be worth pointing out that not all Arabs are Muslims, and not all Palestinians are Muslims. There's Christians in Gaza too. Um, so, not that that would make, just to be clear, that if they all were all Muslims, that wouldn't make it better. But when you're watching the media narratives around what's happening, keep in mind they're not just Muslims. There's Christians too.
yeah, and during Easter was just a few weeks ago, and Benjamin Netanyahu, who oversees Israel, suspended any and all Christian worship in the country during Easter. So think about all those beautiful churches in the Holy Land for Christianity. There's tons of them. They could not celebrate the Mass or the Divine Liturgy, or even just have like a minister give a sermon. No Christianity was allowed during Easter this year. And that wasn't because of the Muslims, that was because of the order sent out by the president of Israel. So take that for what you will as well.
Didn't they also prevent a cardinal from entering the Church of the Holy Sepulchre during Easter? Which, for those of you who don't know what that is, that's the site of Christ's burial. That's where his tomb is. It's a common place for Christian pilgrimages.
So, what was the purpose of banning all that? Because I had never heard that. Because I'm not caught up in like the news and stuff.
They sure did. They thought that the narrative was that it would create more violence if Christians were allowed to worship during, but the Jews were allowed to worship in their synagogues, but not Christians.
So basically, what you're saying is the Christians weren't allowed to celebrate Easter, but the Jews were allowed to celebrate Passover.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right.
Because I was gonna say it's a mixed country because it's Jews and Christians, and I forget what else is over there, but
yeah, the three, especially Israel's a hotbed. Mostly Muslims, a lot of Jews, and a few Christians here and there. But the Christians were the ones who were forbidden to worship during just a short few weeks ago during there's not a more sacred day in the Christian faith than Easter. And we're not allowed to practice that or Good Friday or anything. So are they really, should we really take their side when they're banning the practice of Christianity? I'll leave you with that thought. Okay. Yeah. Luckily, I have the liberty to say what I want. I have tenure, so yeah. If I offend anybody, I don't give a shit. Okay. So that's how I see it. I'll tell you what I think. Okay. Well, so just a heads up for next time. Next time, we're going to kind of put a bow on the history of philosophy with regard to ethics. And next time, I'm going to talk about two things. I'm going to first talk about the philosopher named Friedrich Nietzsche. From there, I'm going to kind of dive into the two modern philosophies. Existentialism is one of them that I will talk about, as well as the idea of moral relativism and ethics. So I will kind of put a bow on our long study of the history of ethical thought next time. And next Wednesday, a week from now, I will give you a lecture introducing you to bioethics. And we will spend the last week of class after that discussing beginning of life ethics topics and then end of life ethics topics. So that's kind of the roadmap of the next 2 weeks. Okay. So we'll see you all then. You all have a great weekend. See you next time.